From the Grind Up with Jeff McClain. Real stories, real hustle, real success.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to From the Grind Up. I'm your host, Jeff McClain. This is a show where we dive deep into real stories behind the hustle, setbacks, the struggles, and the successes in both business and in life. Today's guest is Bruce Cardenas, who is a key figure in Quest Nutrition and is currently involved in legendary foods. Bruce, appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm honored, and I love this part of the country.
Yeah, thank you. You live in Los Angeles, right?
Los Angeles, yeah.
Okay, so yeah. Did you drive out here? I'm sure you did.
Yeah,
nice,
for sure.
Nice little drive.
Yeah, but I'm involved with a ranch in Temecula, so I'm very familiar with the area.
Okay, awesome. So obviously I just gave a quick 10-second intro. There's a lot to talk about as far as, what you really have, what you've really accomplished, and what you've come from. Let's start with, by the way, Bruce has a book that just came out right here called Lead with Value. It's a great book. It's got all the great things that we talk about on the show all the time: hard work, discipline, structure, all the key things that are important if you want to build anything, whether it's a business or simply a life. Tell us a little bit about the book.
The book was a passion play that I think self-doubt kept me from writing a book for years. And it was really, I mentioned Pedro Sculian, several years ago, we spent the day together. We worked out together, had lunch. And at the end of our lunch, he said, Bruce, you not only have one book in you. He said, everyone has a book in them, right? Even if your mom just buys it. He said, but you might have 7 or 8 books. And I was like, nah, I don't think so. And he goes, no, I promise you. And I still self-doubt. And then people kept saying, hey, I'm on these podcasts. I said, where can I get your book? And I said, I don't have a book. So it became a work in progress.
Right. And
for someone that never had more than D's and F's in school, it wasn't like I was a writer. So thank God for recording now.
For sure. It's funny to say, D's and F's in school. I would say that 80% of the guests that we've had on the show and 80% of successful entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs that I know weren't necessarily straight A students. Do you find that to be true in your experiences and people that you've dealt with? For
sure, yeah. I think it's been more life's experiences. I don't think there's any correlation between you, whether you did well in school or had a college degree to make success.
Right. I mean, before the show, we were talking a little bit, and you made a really good point about, the skill sets, the things that you bring to the table. And I think you said the main thing, the thing that you're good at is those relationships.
And I think everything comes back to my dad taught me, work ethic and kept my moral compass straight. So I think those things impacted me more than my school.
Right. And again, I know that is more important than any degree you can ever have. If you meet people want to be around you, people want to do things with you, people want to invest in you or invest with you. Opportunities just seem to present themselves. So, you mentioned your father. I read your book and really enjoyed it. It sounds like, arguably, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, that was a key figure in your life, certainly growing up. Would you agree with that?
Without a doubt. And, obviously when you're in it, your own experience, your dad's not that cool when you're a kid, right? Or a teenager. But as I grew up, I really now reflect on him as like a modern day Jocko, a former combat vet. And he was our Boy Scout leader and taught us all these perishable skills. And looking back, I thought, what kid was able to you'd go rappelling with your dad, kayaking, snowboarding, canoe trips. We hiked sections of the Appalachian Mountains. I grew up back east, so we'd hike 50 to 7 mile sections of the Appalachian Mountains for 6 years straight. And I learned all these skills. And I always wondered, all the kids in my neighborhood want to hang out with my dad. And then I realized, as you get older, like, wow, he was really a meaningful figure in my life. And he taught me also there's no free lunch. Like I think, when you get to that age, I wanted to buy a dirt bike. And he said, listen, if you come up with half the money, I'll pay the other half. So I got a paper route, and I always worked because, he made it clear, listen, you got to pay your way. So
right, and those are life skills that, I tell people all the time too, like being a parent, especially a father, you have a job to do.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, and I'm sure your father understood that, right? Like he wasn't there to be your friend, though I'm sure he obviously loved you and cared about you, but he understood what was at stake, right? And that's building you into being a competent man to take on the world.
For sure. And he was my biggest cheerleader. At the time, even though I'd come home with horrible grades, and he'd say, listen, he goes, it's not going to define you. It's more the skills you're learning and that you're a good human being. Right. I can't make you be an academic,
For sure. And to what you said earlier too, I saw it in your book as well, and I've heard it and I've used it before as well, where you talk about about dads in particular, and how when you're young, you demonize them,
Right.
right? And as they get, or excuse me, when you're young, you idolize them.
Yeah.
They're the hero. They can do anything. Then they start telling you no when you're a teenager and beyond. And you start to
Present them and
demonize them. And then as you get older and start realizing, being a man yourself and realizing what he was likely thinking, that then you humanize them.
Yeah.
And that's really a beautiful, trifecta.
It really is. Yeah. And I'm grateful to have my dad. I mean, we were by no means, we were low middle class, and he provided for 5 of us, but we never wanted for anything, if that makes sense. We had what we needed, and I didn't know any better. So.
Right. And that, I also, I don't want to say the opposite of that, but the other side of that, growing up in your house, you mentioned in your book that your mother, though a great mom who you loved, struggled with alcoholism as throughout your childhood. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think, and it ran in our life. I mean, in our family, like her parents were both alcoholics. She was an alcoholic. My older brother was one. My younger brother turned out to be an alcoholic, and he almost got kicked out of school, and his divorce ended up over alcoholism, and my son's still a functioning alcoholic. So, she was, found AA, I guess, when it was fairly new, and I think almost at the expense of costing us our family, she decided to get help, which was great. And she stayed sober the rest of her life. But I avoided that bullet somehow. I've never been a drinker or drugs, and it's.
Yeah, I mean, it's so amazing, and to see people that, and again, I'm sure you've heard this example, and I use it probably too much, but there's the story of the 2 twin brothers. One of them becomes a high level CEO, super successful, pillar in the community, great guy, great family. The other one is a drug addict, alcoholic, in and out of prison. They're twin brothers, and when asked why they are the way they are, they both say, "My dad was an alcoholic." Right? So some people decide to follow that path, and some people, like yourself, and like myself, frankly, decide to do exact opposite. And it's almost like you don't know why, right? It's like, please expand on that, please.
Yeah. Sometimes there's, like my older brother, who was my half brother, he we moved to our hometown when we were kids, and he decided, I always say there was like railroad tracks separated our town. He went to the south side and hung out with all the undesirables, and hence got involved with drugs and alcohol, and spent multiple times in county jail and then 3 years in state prison. And it's weird because we had this completely separate life. He was older than me, and he was a very hardcore guy. Like, no one messed with my older brother. But he also had this admiration because he offered me drugs. I never did it. And when I became a police officer, he was in prison when I became a police officer. And he wrote me a letter saying, I've never been prouder. Like, I can't believe you were able to accomplish these things in light of me being such a loser around you.
Right.
But
that's amazing. Yeah. And that's what makes a great story, right? I mean, you shouldn't have done what you've done, right? You had every reason
for sure
to do the opposite.
Like, he would literally say, "Do you want to try weed?" And I was, no, I don't. And it was temptation was around me. And for whatever reason in my mind, I thought, no, that's not going to end well. So.
Right. And a lot of times you can look at an intelligent person, and again, whether it's intentional or not, you look at the people that are showing you those examples, and using intelligence, you can go, they do this, and this is how they ended up. Why would I want to do that?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I would assume that, kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but I'm assuming that would be frustrating as when you became a police officer. And I'm kind of screwing up the storyline a little bit, but seeing people, it's like, how do you become a drug addict? When you know if you're going to do this drug, you're likely going to become an addict. And, that would drive me crazy, in that position, just seeing people ruin their lives. And it's like, why did you do it the first time?
It really does. I mean, and we had conversations after he got out of prison, and he was sober, and he lived the rest of his life kind of calmer. And he said that, he goes, I don't know why I chose this path. He goes, I was influenced by people way too easily. And it was just, it's still, there's got to be studies on this, but he even says, I don't know why I did this. He goes, he worked in a body shop, and he was really talented, but he got involved with drugs, and he decided selling drugs was easier than running a body shop.
Right. Which, of course, it never is.
It never ends well.
Right.
And even I've had friends who've gone to prison and have come out and been successful, but they always said those millions of dollars was very short-lived. For
sure. 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. It's just short-sightedness. But so backing up a little bit more, so, in your childhood, how, I'm assuming your father, like you said, you described him as the Jocko Willink of his time, basically. So would you describe him then as a masculine, just rock, in your and when I say masculine, I don't mean aggressive. I don't mean violent.
No.
I don't mean any of that. I mean masculine in the true good sense of the word.
Exactly. He was a very calm. He was a combat vet, and actually interesting. I grew up. He had scars from an explosion when he was overseas, and he had scar tissue on his arms and legs. And I didn't, growing up, I didn't know. I mean, he had those, but I never observed it as a handicap. But he was a very mild mannered guy, but very confident and very physical, but very loving and caring and nurturing.
Right.
Yeah.
Which do you think that example, turns you into the husband, father that you ultimately became? Did you take a lot of those?
100%. Even I think I described in my book, my first learning at work. I went to a job site with him when I think I was 16, and he always offered me cash on a Saturday. And of course I jumped on it. And I was mentioning he was digging a ditch. He's got 7 or 8 guys on this construction site, right? And he gave me a task to go cut up some pipe and whatever. It was like a couple hours of work. And I came around the corner, and my dad was literally 3 feet in this trench digging himself, soaking wet. And I'm staring at him, and he looks up. I said, Dad, why are you digging this ditch? You own the company. And he said, you're right. And he hands me the shovel and says, you only have another 6 feet to go. You'll be done by lunchtime. And he walked away, and I'm like saying bad things under my breath,
Right.
Like, wait, I'm the owner's son. So I dug the ditch, and at the end of the day, we got in his truck, an F-150, where I learned how to drive this F-150 pickup. And I was, typical 16-year-old. And he said, I know you're mad at me. He goes, I need you to explain something, Bruce. He goes, yes, I own the company. But if I don't lead by example, do you think I sit around with a clipboard just saying, you do this? He goes, I could do every job that those guys are doing. I know how to do it just as good. And he said, you will learn as you grow that people will follow you into combat if you do what they do side by side. Mm-hmm. And he goes, you notice at the end of the day, I sent them all to get beers and burgers and enjoy their night. He goes, it's all how you treat people. And I really realized, okay, work ethic and leading people and treating them respectfully, you're going to get so much more out of people.
For sure.
So a lot of learnings with my dad, and he was always very calm. How he just, he never got frustrated with me. He just say, "There's a learning here,"
Right. I say all the time too. You can always tell a leader by how many people are following them, and that doesn't mean thousands or 10, but actually following them.
Yeah.
If you had a crew of guys that respected him, trusted him, and would show up on a Saturday, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
That's because they trusted him as the leader, right?
And he reminded me, he goes, these guys are feeding our family. He goes, you don't think I value their time on a Saturday? So it was very important, those things I learned from him.
Right. All right. So, back to your so you're in school, not really your thing. Not that you were a terrible student. It just wasn't your thing, right?
I was a daydreamer. I was a visionary.
Right. For sure. I have that, condition as well, for sure. But, I get it. You're sitting in the classroom, just not listening. It probably could have done the work easily, but just didn't see a point in it, I'm sure, and that's literally exactly how I spent most of my years. But in your book, you went and spoke to a priest, right? That's correct, right? A priest about kind of your future and about going to the military. Is that correct? Well, or I was a police chief, actually.
Yeah. Well,
right.
yeah. Initially, I grew up in this High Bridge, New Jersey, which is a population, I think, of 2,000 people now. And so they used to let me do, I was an athlete, but the police, it was only a 5-man department, believe it or not, that's tiny, would let me do ride-alongs through, 10th and 11th grade. And I got out of high school, and I remember went to the chief and said, hey, I graduated. What do I need to do to join the department? I thought it was a no-brainer. I'm part of the team, right? They're letting me do ride-alongs. And he said in his own kind words, he said, Bruce, you're basically young, dumb, and immature. I don't think he called me dumb, but this is my takeaway.
Yeah.
He said, but if you do as I did, I went in the Marine Corps, I'll hire you the day you get out. And I was like, I didn't say anything. I just left, and I thought, that's so weird. I have to leave the comfort of this town to go in the Marine Corps. Why? I didn't know a Marine. My dad, they were all Army. And I drug my feet and procrastinated, and we grew up very Catholic, and we'd go to church, and I went to church one day, and I had a conversation with the priest at the end of the service, and he said the exact same words. He goes, you need to get a high bridge. You need to do what the chief said. And he goes, I promise you this. He goes, you're not going to hear what I'm saying now. He goes, but life has a bigger picture for you. He goes, and I said, well, I want to come back and be a cop in High Bridge. He goes, I promise you will not come back to High Bridge. He goes, you'll be a cop, but it won't be in High Bridge. I said, no. And he was kind, because I thought, okay, I'm never going to leave High Bridge. Why would I leave the hometown? And he was right. I went in the Marine Corps, and I discovered, wow, there's a big world out here. Mm-hmm. I'd never been on a commercial flight. I never experienced anything.
Yeah, you touched on something. You were comfortable there.
Comfort,
I swear, every other show that comes up. How comfort though it seems like something we always pursue, more times than not, it's the worst thing for you, certainly for growth.
Yeah. And even when I got to high school, I was procrastinating. Okay, I had a job as a blue collar. I was driving actually a tow truck and changing these big rig tires on the freeway. And my dad, I was working for my dad part-time, and he's like, hey, if you want to take over the business, you know, it'll eventually be yours. And I almost fell into that. Okay, wow, I could stay in my hometown. I could still, I'll work local. But I had that dream about being a police officer because my uncle was a cop, and I just had this fantasy about being a cop. And I thought, no, I don't want to settle. I don't want to be a truck driver. I mean, I could have done well, and I would have done well in all those things, but it pushed me to get out of that town.
Right. So you just at that point kind of just took a chance.
Exactly.
Was it? I don't know. Was it? Would you say, looking back, it was like, I know there's something more out there for me, or was it more like, I'm just going to take a chance and I don't know what's going to happen?
I'm going to take a chance, but still with the mindset, I still thought, okay, I'm going to go in the Marine Corps and do my time knowing I'm going to come back to high bridges. I'm like, I'm going to go away and be penalized and come back. But and once I went in the Marine Corps, I mean, I discovered a big world, and there was words like honor, courage, and commitment that the Marine Corps talks about. And on top of that, I was like, wow, there's a lot of things to experience here.
So the Marine Corps experience, let's go into that. So you went and talked to a recruiter. Tell me about that. I think you said in the book you did talk about the recruiter a little bit.
Yeah, even the
well.
recruiter, like I grabbed my best friend, Jim. I didn't want to go alone, and we went down and talked to this recruiter. And within 5 minutes, but let me tell you, recruiters are great at what they do.
Right.
Guy had the whole dress blues on, and we were convinced. Okay, and we had to do this paperwork. I think it's called an ASVAB test. It's a basic aptitude test. And I swear on everything, I literally looked at this test and I went like, okay, A, B, it was like a Christmas tree to me. And I didn't know how important that test was, except when he looked at it, he's like, my friend Jim, he goes, oh, you want to work in aviation? Great, you got a perfect score. And he looked at mine, he goes, He goes, and he kind of was so good at selling. He goes, well, let's not worry about that test right now. We'll get you in the Marine Corps. I didn't realize what that meant was I'm going in as a grunt.
Right.
There was no guarantee of, I thought I wanted to be an MP, military police officer. I thought, well, that'd be somehow correlated to being a cop. But I went in and I was a grunt based on my score. But,
right.
you know, I don't have any regrets, because as painful as it was to be, you know, when you go to boot camp, I tell people, if you ever watch the movie Full Metal Jacket, minus the guy that went crazy, it's no joke. It's a lot of mental and physical gymnastics. And they say this, I went in a boy and came out a man. I had no experience in life. I didn't even know what it was to really fight and just experience everything. So,
right.
I recommend it. Let me tell you this. I don't even now, man or woman, I think the military is still a great place to be if you don't know what you want to do in life.
Right. It's a great kind of filler. And so many people go thinking it's a filler and then retire 20, 30 years later.
And everything's free. Like my son did 2 tours. He's been in for 2 times and he's out, but now he's still benefiting. They're paying for him to go to construction to run cranes, and it's all paid for. So the military's got a lot of perks.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So were you, 4 years, or how long were you?
I did 4 and then another 8 in the reserves.
Okay.
Yeah. And the reserves was great. Honestly, I was a police officer at the time, and it became, those weekends just kept coming, and I had a young family, and that's one of the regrets. I wish I stayed, but I didn't.
Right. So so the plan was laid, go to the military, certain amount of time, get out, apply for what ultimately became LAPD.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was a serendipitous thing. I when I was in the Marine Corps, I got involved with working out and powerlifting, and that was my life. I was very healthy, and my training partner at the time said, hey, there's this big powerlifting meet in Camp Pendleton here in San Diego. He goes, I want you to go with me. I think we'll do well. And I said, I don't want to go to California. Like, I was almost ready to get out. And I said, I've never been to California, nor do I want to go. And he convinced me. So I end up in California. We do this competition, and we both did really well. And so we had a couple of days hanging out, and I was like, wow. There's a career day on base. What it was, there was a career day, and all these trucking companies and, different, looking to hire people. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, and I don't remember what the salary was, but I'm thinking at the time there was these police departments. I said, oh my God, beautiful people, beautiful weather, and I get paid to be here.
Right.
So I just stayed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then while you were applying for that, I think you, again, in your book, you mentioned, I think you applied to multiple different departments, correct?
Multiple departments. And that was, I'm dating myself a little bit. There was no internet. There was no, you'd go get a paper application and fill it out and mail it back. And it was a process. And I applied at like 10 different police departments. And I just happened to hear back from LAPD first, which was a blessing, because that, pretty prestigious police department. And, but and while I was processing, I had multiple jobs. I was working as a trainer at Gold's Gym in Fontana, and I was working as a car salesman. I just did anything because I had a young family.
Right.
And
Yeah, I actually wanted to touch on the car salesman thing because you mentioned in the book that you just, no training or very little training. It was like the same day you got hired, you just said, okay, I'm going to go sell a car today. You know, like, and just basically walked out and gave it a shot. Right?
I saw an ad in the paper and I said, well, that's pretty close to my house where I'm living. I went in and Mr. Graber, I mentioned in my book, I said hi to him and I told him I had no experience, but I was, clean cut Marine. And he goes, when can you start? He goes, can you start today? I said, now? He goes, yeah. He goes, 2 guys didn't show up. I said, okay. He goes, just hang out with this guy, Carlos, and kind of learn the ropes. And I was the #1 salesman from that day until the day I left 1 year later. And I can only attest to that it was relationships. Mm-hmm. Even when I didn't have the most knowledge about the vehicle, I'd say, let's go figure it out together. Right. I was authentic. Like people would ask me questions and I knew a lot about cars, but and it kind of pushed against the grain of the old timers because I did everything that you're not supposed to do.
Right.
I would let people leave because you're supposed to pass it and hey, try and get someone else to sell it. And I would go in and say, oh no, they're going to be back. And they said, Bruce, no one ever comes back. And they'd come back. And they'd say, oh, where's Bruce? He's that guy that was so nice to us. And then I got referrals and it just became, and I realized that relationship capital is everything.
For sure. Yeah. And it's funny in the sales world, and we've had people in the car business in here. We've had, all different selling of all different types of things. And I think so many people get it wrong in that sense. Everybody thinks they have to be this fast talker, hard push, get them,
closing.
Yeah, close them, get them in a corner where they he who speaks first loses, all the stuff that we've all learned.
Yeah.
However, if you're just a good person and you just actually aren't there to screw them.
Yeah.
And people can see that, I think, a mile away.
They really can. And if you give them experience first, they're going to want to do business. There's things I talk about. It's one of my philosophies in business. If people like you, they're going to listen to you, right? Mm-hmm. And if they trust you, they're going to buy. And more like now in the space I'm in, if you transform their lives, they're going to tell 10 friends. And it's the same thing in any space. Yeah. I don't care what industry you're in, whether service or an experience, it's the same. It's applicable. If people like you, they're going to listen to you.
And if you screw them over, they're also going to, then they're going to tell 20 friends.
Yeah, that's true too. Right? Yeah. You want to give people a good experience and be authentically true to who you are,
For sure. So you're working at the car dealership, making good money. I know in the book you mentioned that, when you were actually going to move to the LAPD, they made you a pretty substantial offer to stay.
Yeah.
I think you said it was $150,000.
At the time, that was a lot of money. You know, people that don't know the car industry, there's a lot of money to be made in the car industry. And he said, you'll be a manager here in a year and you'll have your own car. And I said, that's really amazing, but I really have this passion about being a cop. And we stayed in touch for a long time. Mm-hmm. It was just a calling. As we know, like all money does is facilitate things in life. And you can make a lot of money, but I had a calling about being a servant leader and serving the community.
Beautiful, beautiful. So police officer. Mm-hmm. And at that time, that was, I'm assuming, your primary focus. I mean, you were a police officer, plus you were a reservist with the Marines. So you had that
was my full-time gig.
Right.
Yep.
And how long was it just that before you started doing the security stuff as well?
So a few years in, I had, once again, goes back to relationships and what you do for people. We took a police, there was a retired Beverly Hills sergeant who had his car broken into in LA, and we got a call. Now, most police officers would show up and say, oh, just go to the station and they'll take a report at the desk because it's kind of lazy. Mm-hmm. But my partner goes, yeah, just tell him to go to the station. I said, yeah, he seems like a nice guy. I break out the clipboard and I'm taking a report. And John was the victim, acknowledged that. He goes, wow, you're taking a report for me? He goes, yeah, we'll get that done. And as I'm talking to him, he said, I own a security business, a protection business. He goes, you seem like a really nice person. If you're looking to pick up extra money, like maybe on weekends or nights, I'd love to talk to you. And I'm like, really? And that started a whole nother world where I started working for him primarily like nights or weekends. And he was taking care of the who's who in Hollywood. He had all the accounts of all the big names, all the award shows. And it, once again, it was like a purpose and why. I use the word purpose and why a lot. Marine Corps had a purpose and why for me. And then this protection business was in the same circle per se, protecting people, serving other people. And it became something bigger than I ever could imagine. Because after I worked with him for, I think like 9 months, another learning, a client of mine who I still have to this day. He doesn't come out as often. He's older now, but he's a big financier guy. I was with him one day with his assistant driving him around town, and he said, "Do you work do you work for us directly? Like, he didn't know. You know, these guys at that level don't.
Yeah.
I go, no, I'm through a company. He goes, well, why don't you start your own company, Bruce? He goes, why am I paying someone else? And I didn't. He goes, I want you to start your own company. Next time I'm in town, I want you to start your own company. Of course, he left town, and I called my brother, who's a lawyer. I said, hey, guy wants me to start a company. What's that mean? I had no idea, right?
Right.
And I started my own business, and the whole process and license and insurance, and then I started securing my own clients. And he's my first client, and I've still have him to this day.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you still go out and actually
Me
do
personally,
the work?
yeah.
Wow.
Two clients I personally do.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's interesting. That's another whole dynamic of relationships that people become very comfortable.
Right.
And there's one client I take care of. He's here, 75 days a year, and we were just at Coachella together for 4 days. But I don't do as much, because obviously the nutrition space takes up a lot of time. But I still love doing it. Yeah.
So obviously in the book, if you guys want to hear more about that, look in the book, because there's lots of pictures and things in the book to talk about that. But any unique, fun stories involved with that, that might be worth telling?
In the security?
Yeah, obviously you rubbed elbows with, seems like everybody that was anybody.
A lot of interesting. Listen, I've been to the White House 5 times, 4 times with talent that was performing on the Capitol, and during Police Week with Mariah Carey and stuff. And I always reflected on that. When I would be in those positions, I'd be like, God, do they know I'm just a dumb kid from New Jersey? Like
Right.
literally, when you're in these places, you're like, geez, like it's kind of like you still to this day. If I've been to a lot of Super Bowls working for people, like 25 Super Bowls, and even though I'm older now and experienced all these things, it's still like, wow, like this is kind of wild. But yeah, we did a lot of work like early on with the Kardashians and different people, and listen,
I get it. You don't want to drop their names
can't really drop
much.
too many
That's your
names, but
clients,
listen, everyone.
Right.
I will say this: everyone puts their clothes on the same way as we do.
Of course.
Same problems, same situations. Just maybe it's magnified. But I really became a logistics guy. Like I figured out how to get people in and out of problems, and like coordinating weddings and special events. And my biggest thing is really keep avoiding problems. Not going into problems, but getting people out of problems.
So meaning this isn't a safe environment for my client. We should probably do
like
this instead.
anticipating what's
Right.
going to happen, like leaving back doors and front, as opposed to front doors. It's just a lot of different things to keep people off the limelight.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure that's a huge part of what the actual security business is. Everyone just assumes stand there, be capable, competent, and armed, and keep your eyes open. That's fine. But avoiding risk in the first place, I'm sure.
And now it's magnified with TMZ and with in Instagram and stuff. But honestly, like most of the clients I work with, we're never even seen. We're going to the back doors, and we're going. I think people that are on TMZ are sometimes do that by design. They want to be.
Of course.
Yeah. So.
What do they say? Any publicity?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So, all right. So you're doing the security thing, making money. Is that?
Yeah.
Did you transition from the LAPD to that full time, or?
Well, I ended up, because I just couldn't manage my time. That's why I became a reserve officer and then transitioned to that full time, which was quite demanding, but I enjoyed it. It was once again another calling.
Mm-hmm. So in that process, you've always been starting probably as in your being an athlete in the high school, and then in the Marine Corps, you got into fitness.
Yeah.
Got into it heavily. You were training at Gold's Gym as a trainer at Gold's Gym, correct?
Yeah.
Doing the security thing, I'm sure. Then you met someone there that ultimately led to your next business venture, correct?
Yeah, Quest. So I was working out at Spectrum at the time. It was like a bay club, and I don't even just in passing. You have gym acquaintances, and Shannon Penna was one of those gym acquaintances. She goes by Quest Creator, and her husband Ron worked out there, and became past acquaintances. And she would offer me a couple of protein bars one day and say, "Hey, I've been making these in my kitchen. We finally are commercialized. We're making them in a commercial space." And she gave me a couple of protein bars. I remember peanut butter and vanilla almond crunch. And I saw her maybe a few weeks later and said, "Hey, those bars were phenomenal." I grew up in that era of they weren't so good, but prior to that, and the taste, the texture, and everything was great. And Shannon I call her a super foodie. And she, she talked for like a half an hour about how, I'm making it in my kitchen. And there was some dynamic with her, this energy level, this frequency, I call it. And at the end I think I talked to her maybe 2 or 3 times, and I finally said, I don't know if I could do anything for you, but I felt compelled to help. I said, I'm doing security next week at the celebrity golf tournament at Riviera Country Club up in Brentwood, and my friend's doing the PR. If you want to get me some bars, maybe I can get them in the hands of some people. And I knew I wouldn't get them in the hands of celebrities because I'm not going to go to anyone I'm protecting and say, So I gave him to my friend Cheryl, who was doing the PR. And by the way, when I told Shannon, she graciously dropped him off at my house the next day, and I brought him to this golf tournament. And Cheryl said, "Oh yeah, I'll do one better. I'll get people to try it on camera." And this is before social media. There was like blogs and stuff. She had people trying it on camera, and I remember I got some pictures with. At the time I had a BlackBerry before the iPhone was in, and I showed Shannon those.
I still miss my BlackBerry.
I know they were that was so good. They need to come back anyway. I showed Shannon some pictures and people, and they were like, "Wow, like how do you know these people?" And I reminded her what I do for a living, and that just kept going. Like then I was on the set of Mario with Extra with Mario Lopez because they were a client, and I brought product to the set. And I remember one time I dropped off product. I was there. You know, we had two guys when they filmed at the Grove. I always had two guys on set all the time. And one day Mario was giving out on camera. "Oh yeah, Quest dropped off some product," and I'm like, "Holy cow!" And that just kept going. And then I knew the production company that did the Kardashian shows, and I got them product. And if in the early days it would be on the set of the Kardashians when it was still free, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And after doing that for about 9 months, I remember Ron invited me out to the office, and I went out to the office. It was in the city of Paramount, which is on the outsides of LA, South LA, and by no means was there any promise of success when I pulled into this industrial park, which was in the ghetto.
Mm-hmm. And
nothing outside had any appearance of success, but on the inside, there was magic happening. They're making these bars back in the back. And he said, "Listen," he goes, "you know, you're bringing us all this value and we're not doing anything in return." And my exact words were, "I get free protein bars."
Right.
And he said, "Well, I think you're worth a little more than that." He goes, "Next week, we're going to put you on the payroll." And I said, No, please don't. You don't have to. He goes, "You can give it to charity. You can do whatever you want, but we're going to put you on the payroll." And I will say this, the first time I got a check, which was nominal, it was whatever, something inside kicked in, and it brought me back to when I was a kid, when my dad used to pay me and how valuable that money was, and what it was like. Nothing's free, right? So when I started getting compensated, I was like, "Oh my God, now I got to really prove myself."
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as just, "Oh, you're just a consultant." I didn't even know what that meant. So,
have you ever asked him if that was strategic on his part?
No, I don't. We've never had a conversation. Yeah, right. Maybe
because that's where my head just went.
Right.
Like as a CEO, it's like, if you
throw him a little
kill
bone,
someone, if he can do this for free, what
can he do for? And I started like I never shared this with, like I never verbalized it, but my mind went in overdrive. I was like, "Okay, where else can I get this product? Okay, I can bring it here. I can bring it there." And it became a obsession, and it became a 7-day a week. Even to this day now, I go to the gym and I have a backpack. I have product in it. And it evolved from that to me building out the events department, the ambassador program. And like I said, I was doing things other people did not want to do. And I didn't know what the word intrapreneur meant then, but I became an intrapreneur in the company because they said, "Hey, we have 99 problems and we want some of them off our plate. We are tech guys. We're in the software business and we want to build relationships." And it just...
So were they not fitness guys? I mean, I know you met them at the gym, but I mean, you clearly are a fitness guy. Were they, or were they just normal guys who have?
No. So Shannon, actually, she's got heritage. She's a physique. She used to be a physique competitor.
Okay.
Her dad,
guys and gals, I should say.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Her dad, his name is Chet Yorton, was only one of 3 people that beat Arnold Schwarzenegger in bodybuilding in the 1967.
Oh wow. Okay.
So yeah, she was a genetic freak. And then Ron, still to this day, he's jacked. And then Mike, they were all fitness minded, but they were in the tech space. They just stumbled across, like Shannon was making these bars in her kitchen, and Ron had this light bulb moment of like, wait, there's something here. Because he was bringing them to work, and these tech guys were eating them, and he's like, if these tech guys like them.
Right.
So
to your point earlier, back in those days, protein bars, you had to muscle those things down,
So no, they were fitness minded, but like I said, they were, no one knew. They were originally just going to start Quest as a marketing company. They didn't think they were going to ever get into production and all this stuff. So it just evolved, and it was really a clean slate because everyone that came into the company, I just had the mindset of, I need to get product in everybody's hands, and I don't know what that means. So I just did that, and I started traveling. I think I mentioned in the book, I traveled like 40 weekends a year for 4 or 5 years straight.
So how long was the time from basically you getting that first check and becoming like, okay, this is a real thing that I'm going to spend some serious time on, to at least talks of an exit?
What's interesting, even when I got that first check, he goes, "Hey, just keep doing your day job. Do your bodyguard work." He goes, "You don't have to spend any more time with us." Of course,
right.
I ended up doing that.
Right.
And I think from the time that happened till the time of an equity partner coming in to play was like 5 years. Yeah.
So a 5-year a bull rush, it sounds like, just everybody just going after and being first to the market and really just, attacking that opportunity.
First to the market, and it was like a rocket ship. I mean, I think the 5th year we were named by Inc. 500 the second fastest growing company in the country in all categories.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's crazy. We were named number 2, but the number 1 company went out of business a year after that. So
wow.
Yeah, so it was like a rocket ship, and
So what's that like if, when that transition starts to happen? I think a lot of people will be very interested about that, because that ended up being a massive, I believe it was a $1 billion
cash exit. Yeah,
cash exit. That's unheard of in most industries. Today, these crazy tech things.
Yeah, big numbers.
But I mean, that's still a massive amount of money. How does that conversation, is sitting in a boardroom like, look, this is, with all the shareholders, which you ended up having equity, right? Like, how's that conversation? Was it like, should we do this? Or is it like, heck yeah, we're doing this?
Well, I think early on, when we had an equity partner come in, it's funny, if I was friends with him before Quest, he was in the entertainment industry, and we're still friends to this day. He saw the vision. He came in and infused some money, and then said, okay, now we need to kind of package this up, which I didn't even know these terms meant. Like,
right.
Clean this up, and he brought in his own CEO to kind of make it streamlined. There were conversations where I think originally we were offered $1.5 billion, and we turned it down.
Whoops.
Yeah, right. And we had some stumbles. I will tell you this: there, as much as people look back at Quest, what they know about it, you guys lucky, it was amazing. We had some shortcomings. We had some formulation problems. We had a formulation change, which I think we took. I'm making up a number. We were at $440 million in sales, and we took like a 20% hit in sales because of a formulation change. So there's a lot of things we did. And one thing I do tell people, this is one of my philosophies of business. I say brand consistency is far greater than brand creativity. And what I mean by that is, we started out, we were just getting bars in people's hands. That's all we knew. But what happens is brands don't stay, that becomes kind of boring. And then we decided, it was a period of time, I say we, because it's a team, right? But someone in marketing said, well, we did this music video that cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it was all around the launch of a blueberry flavor bar, and nothing happened. But I'm going to say like half a $1 million later, nothing happened. And then we did a virtual reality booth, and that just slowed things down. And then we did billboards, and we did food trucks. And as we kept doing these things, because the cash kept coming in, we reminded ourselves after all these, they're failures, basically. You could say we put money in it, but they failed. It goes back to, putting bars in people's hands is what we know. All the Super Bowl commercials in the world that doesn't move the needle. So I tell that with people's brands. You could do all the cool, fireworks, but you have a service. You need to just do what you do. And sometimes it's boring every day.
Right.
But
boring and brand consistency is what is, people come, they know what to expect when they open that package.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And doing that day in and day out is, for me, it's not boring. It's exciting. But for people that are like creative and marketing, well, that's cool, but let's do something else. And it ends up wasting money and resources and time when you just have to stick with what you know.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. And then I'm going to be using that one for sure on some of my other stuff, because I talk about branding all the time.
Yeah, and branding is great. Oh, branding, like listen, you see, I don't go anywhere without branding,
sure.
but that doesn't mean you need to, pay for billboards on the freeway.
Right. No, have your brand, but have your brand mean something.
Yeah.
And then stick to that. Like, and just, we talked about that yesterday on some stuff we were doing here about how, even, the example I think I used was Dollar Tree or, 99-cent store or something. It's like their brand is to be inexpensive.
Yeah.
That's okay. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that, but that's their brand. Yeah. They don't sit there and try to sell Bentleys out of the back of the
right.
Base,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's like, that's a completely different brand.
Yes.
So that's a great point that you made. So like staying in your lane and knowing what you're good at and doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on that is huge advantage and a great point.
And I think most people, if you ever interview these successful millionaires and billionaires, they did a lot of boring things for a lot of years.
Oh yeah.
It sounds good after they're, philanthropic and doing cool stuff and selling, art on the beach, but they did a lot of boring stuff to get there.
Sure. And we talk about it too. Like that's the parallels in business and in fitness too, is you see somebody in the gym. I use the example all the time. It's like you see some guy in there, repping this huge weight or something, and somebody walks in and goes to a trainer and is like, I want to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
Here's some money. The next day they're like, well, no, I wanted to do that. It's like, no. No matter how much money you give me, this just going to take
time,
right?
Yeah.
And I think people try to, when they have some money, they see something they want. So many people try to avoid the only path, certainly in fitness and in business, most of the time. You just got to do the hard stuff every day, over and over and over,
day in and day out. And that's where people sometimes lose interest and tap out.
So let me ask you, what was it like, when it was ending, when okay, this is happening, this is funding, however that transition was it like, I'm assuming, was there some sort of party? Was it a big celebration? Was it somber? Was it like, yeah, this is great. We've all done well financially, but there goes our baby. Like I can only imagine how weird that would be.
It was weird. I don't think there was a big celebration. It was kind of somber. I mean, because it just because we knew it was coming, and the transition was, me specifically said, well, we want you to stay on for a year.
Okay, I was just going to ask you
to be a good shepherd, good steward of the brand, and we'll obviously pay you. And I had some separation anxiety because all I ever knew was Quest Nutrition. Like, it was my life. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to lie, my closet at home, I must have gotten rid of more like clothing and sweatshirts and hoodies and stuff because I was no longer part of that football team.
Yeah,
I was traded.
Oof. Yeah,
but
that's your identity, right? I mean, you built so much.
But I think the fortunate thing for me, particularly because Ron, everyone, all the founders, everyone was gone except Ron. And Ron, a year before we actually sold, said, "Hey, I'm going to start. I have this idea for this company called Legendary Foods." He ran it by the investors because we had a non-compete.
Yeah.
And he said, "Hey, I'm going to start this little side hustle." We always call these things side hustles. It's going to be nut butters and seasoned nuts. Nothing to do with protein pastries or protein bars. And they said, "Oh yeah, that's cute. Yeah, go do your thing." That's literally, they almost dismissed it. And we started Legendary Foods. So it was kind of cool for me while I'm still like being the good steward of Quest. We're working out of Ron's house for Legendary. We're starting Legendary. And the only thing he reminded us, and it's interesting because people have this mindset of, sometimes you can't replicate what you did. Magic in a bottle, or whatever you call it. It doesn't always happen twice.
Right.
So we had no dreams of it's going to be the next Quest. We just knew, okay, we got to start. We're going to be lean and nimble, and we're going to be working from the house. And the first few years were very tough. And also, he asked us all to consider what we wanted to make. And I didn't accept any money for the first 2 years. I just said, no, I said, in my mind, I said, I've seen this movie before.
Right.
I think I've been in this movie, and I'm going to just kind of like do what I have to do to bring value to the team and once again, work my ass off. Other people, it's interesting, other people had a different mindset because a couple of people came on and said, well, I need this much money. And believe it or not, they got paid that much money, but it was short-lived. So.
Right. Short vision, right? They were playing the short game versus the long game. How important do you think it is aligning yourself with someone like Ron? I mean, would you say, clearly you're a visionary. Clearly he's a visionary. You play very different roles in both of those companies. I'm assuming you complement him in areas that he's weak and vice versa. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a genius when it comes to R&D and creating. His expertise is creating product. That's what he loves and is passionate about. I mean, he has to get involved with other things because he oversees the whole company. But I think, he's the best kind of person because he obviously funded all of it at the beginning until we got another firm coming in. But once again, another guy who's like, hey, do what you do best. Like, I'm not here to oversee. We're a very flat organization, by the way. The SEAL teams practice that. There's no hierarchy. Yeah, there's ultimately, if there has to be a major decision, there's someone making that decision. But we're not into titles. We're not, I'm the VP of marketing. I'm this. No, like, do what you do. And some of it may overlap other people's, what they enjoy doing.
So how long has it been since that went from, a real thing to you actually have product in your hands?
For a Legendary?
Excuse me, till now, yeah, excuse me.
Well, it's been an evolution. I mean, like we said, we started out with the nuts and nut butters, but now we're in the whole protein space, which I think we've had the protein pastries now for 3 years. We had to wait till there's a non-compete was up that could do protein pastries, and now we have sweet rolls and protein donuts and chips, and we just launched the mac and cheese, which is probably might be our biggest home run. It's got 48 grams of protein per cup.
Holy
like
moly.
a couple noodles, yeah.
Wow,
I should have brought some with me. I'll send you some.
Little bowl of steak.
Yeah, really. So The difference is I say that I think legendary foods are more relatable foods. Like if you grew up in the States, everyone's had a Kellogg's Pop-Tart. So we have protein pastries, Pop-Tarts. We have donuts. We have sweet rolls. We have things that I think people relate to much different than a protein bar. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at other kinds of relatable foods.
And that's genius to what you said earlier. I think everything has to evolve, right? And we people who are fitness people have been eating protein bars their entire lives.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's better than not eating.
Yeah, right.
You know, but how many more of these stinking things?
And ours, it's a healthier option. I mean, of course, I'll tell you to eat real food. But if you're on the go or traveling or going to a meeting, and I have tons of my friends, hey, I'm glad I kept these donuts in my car. You know, it's like a grab and go.
It's a supplement to a normal diet.
It's
obviously.
an option.
Yeah.
And listen, it's better than, listen, I mean, you know, the health of America is in the whole. It's better for, you know, someone to eat a bag, you know, or protein donuts at night instead of a pint of Haagen-Dazs or whatever you would potentially eat. So
absolutely. So, what does it look like? What's the trajectory of Legendary now? Like, what's the talk? What's the buzz? What's the goals? What can you share?
You know, we're on a good pace. I would say the numbers will reflect Quest numbers in the next 36 months, which is pretty cool, right? I mean, to have another unicorn, which is unheard of in business, right? It's very rare. And I think we'll probably start a third side hustle before that ends, you know? Could be something else. I mean, the good news is everything we do is all whey protein. We're not going to vary from that, but I think it'll be another food space item.
Okay. So clearly there's something in the works.
And
that's fine. You're not going to divulge it today. I understand that, but I look forward to that for sure. So yeah, that was kind of going to be my next question. Like, what else is there? I mean, you take this thing, is the goal to take this to Quest numbers and exit, or is that something you're not comfortable talking about, or what's the?
Listen, early on at Quest, I didn't even understood I didn't think companies would sell. I thought it would be like a generational thing, right? So now that now that I understand that business model very well, yeah, I would say that's the evolution of most businesses, right? You're going to sell, but we have somehow figured out this model, Ron has, that, okay, now we'll just roll into another business, you know?
Right, because what else are you going to do, right? I mean,
right.
Money's great, but what's your purpose? What are you going to do when you get up tomorrow, right? I mean, when you've done things your whole life and built things and met people and you know, just been out in the world, and then suddenly you got a few bucks in the bank, you're just supposed to stay home.
Yeah. And some people will. I mean, listen, and that's nothing wrong. People were going to come and go in our circle, and they may have had enough or made enough money. And I still feel like every day is like, it's time to wake up and do good things.
Awesome.
And I'm fortunate enough to be able to do, you know, I go to gyms and work out. I'm writing books. I'm traveling. I'm meeting cool people. So it's a very unique situation I'm in.
So tell me about BioShift. Right, that's another venture you're involved in.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. So years ago, when I was first hanging out with Ron at Quest, we had these conversations, and we pretty deep conversation about medical issues. And he said, "Listen, all of us are going to be affected by heart disease and cancer. Every single person in the world. And sure, you know, a lot of my family's died. My father died, and my brother died of cancer. And so we started, like 13 years ago, we started treating dogs that had cancerous tumors with a ketogenic diet. Mm-hmm. And we went to the extent we got a 50-acre ranch in Texas outside of Austin because it's easier to do certain things there, like radioactive PET scans and stuff with equipment. And we had positive results. And these dogs with cancerous tumors, the cancerous tumors would shrink. And we're like, wow, we're onto something here. Fast forward, after a lot of experiments and things, we now have our building in Santa Monica, which is almost 40,000 square feet. 20,000 or 15,000 of it is this BioShift Research Foundation, which now we have a whole medical suite. We have a chief of medicine. We have 2 or 3 scientists, and we are doing studies on cancer, heart disease, neuropathy, and glaucoma. Heart disease is the most promising, so we've concluded there's certain things you could take. And I'm actually one of the recipients. I'm on the study because I've had 2 stints. Mm-hmm. I had a stint put in 10 years ago and another one 5 years ago, so I have a lot of calcification in my heart. So we're treating people with There's different things we're treating people with that's reducing plaque now.
Let me stop you there for a second. Yeah. A guy that's been eating relatively healthy your whole life, in fitness most of your life. How does that happen? You know, and I'm not saying like I genuinely like, you wouldn't think that. I
Yeah.
mean, I know better, but I mean, to the average person, you think if someone is doing all the right things, that's not a concern.
Absolutely. So one thing we've concluded, because I would ask the same thing, and there's no reflection on what the outside looks like compared to what's going on in your pipes. We have had people in our studies, including one of my coworkers does Ironmans. He's got 70% blockage in his heart. And I remind people, especially friends of mine that are over that certain age of 50 years old, and it's a lot of it, men will say, oh, I just got my annual physical, which consists of an EKG, blood pressure, urine, blood. And they say, my doctors said I have a clean bill of health.
Right? Famous last words.
Yeah, and yes, because they only covered that $900, but they don't do any testing of your heart. They don't do any CT scans. And I would have been a clean bill of health too. If it wasn't for Ron 11 years ago, said, hey guys, I have this cardiologist team coming in and do some basic testing. If you want to do it, we'll use one of the offices. And I was one of the recipients. And even at the end of the test, the doctor said, you seem okay, but you've never seen a why don't you come in for some more advanced testing? And it wasn't until 2 or 3 tests later, he said, oh, wow, you have 85% blockage in your widowmaker. And I was living a healthy life. I was working out every day. I would have literally just dropped dead at some point. So because of Ron's forward thinking and being a visionary, we're now very proactive. And basically, if you're over 50, we have guys come in. It's basically a scan of your carotid is the basic thing. And you can tell right there how much plaque you have built up. And then at our cost, we send people for a CT scan, which costs over $2,000. And then we then have treatment. There's things called tricapran. These are medicines that have been known to break up plaque, but all at our cost. So like, for instance, this year, I think we're going to spend $17 million out of our own pocket on all this stuff. So we started the BioShift Research Foundation because at some point we do want to start asking people to participate. There's 800 billionaires in the United States, and a lot of them have their own causes, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to start asking people, hey, maybe you've been affected by cancer, heart disease, and you want to be part of this program. So
is the like, what is the, like, put it in a nutshell, 30-second elevator pitch. Like, what is that? I understand all the research, but what is the end goal? Like, is there solutions? Is there products, things like that?
Yeah, ours for the neuropathy, there's definitely products because there's no cure for neuropathy, but there's treatments, and we found treatments on that which are very simple things that no one else has stumbled across. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the heart disease. We found these things now that are. I'm actually just started this protocol with this product from Australia that has been known to reduce plaque in your heart. I'm only 4 days into it. So in 6 months, we'll know if it's effective on me. So the end result is I say we want to keep our friends alive longer. Mm-hmm. We're not looking to become a global entity. We don't, if people don't know about us, great. But now we're like, okay, we're spending all these millions of dollars and we want to bring people that we know into the circle to basically keep people alive longer. Yeah.
Awesome. So it's a facility. Can people just walk in there, or is it?
Yeah, make an
appointment. Obviously,
yeah, make an appointment. But yeah, we obviously most people have these problems over 50. Mm-hmm. But we're also working on some things with cartilage issues in the knees and joints. But right now, it's heart disease is the primary thing, and the cancer. But both of them, we have full labs. Like one thing we're doing is I noticed in these other companies will go 20, 30 years doing research.
Right.
Ours is we will do a study for 6 months or a year, and if we conclude we can't find answers, next. Mm-hmm. Drop that study and find, and really the heart disease is probably the most prominent and most successful so far.
Awesome. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. So our goal, we want to help people. And I say it in my own comedy way, we sell donuts to cure cancer. That's my thing. And that's
perfect. Yeah. That sounds like a smoking deal to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, kind of as we sort of think about winding this up, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the book again.
Yeah.
And, if someone, why would someone read this book? And I guess, what do you hope that someone gets from it, and who do you think can get the most value from it, if there is someone, or is it just really can help anyone?
I think it can help anyone, maybe help fast track some things. Listen, to me, this is when I was 12 years old and on my paper route, and I would read the paper and see these stories about Howard Hughes and all these successful people, but I had no way of getting out of my hometown. Like I thought, okay, I'm here forever. Like those people, that's like even writing books, those are for really smart people.
Right.
And I think this is for the 12-year-old Bruce that had a vision, and I was a dreamer, to how can you get out of your hometown? Because I really do believe anyone could do anything they want in the world, in this country especially. It's unlimited, right? You could be a dumb kid failing out of high school and become, you want to start a business, start it. And I think some of the takeaways are here. And even if you already have a business, how can I fast track and streamline some of the things I'm working on? How can I have better relationships? people ask me all the time, they see me, I go to events all the time. And I said, you don't have to be in LA to go to events. You could start these events in Wisconsin. You're in the real estate business, build community events. You bring in speakers. You could do it anywhere. I think people limited what they believe is their mindset, right?
Absolutely.
I'm in a place where there's no celebrities. You don't need celebrities. You need people.
Right.
And now with podcasts, I mean, gosh, you can.
Everybody's a celebrity.
Yeah, you're a celebrity, and
right.
and all of a sudden there's millions of podcasts, and it's the best way to communicate with the world now. So, I think the book is for anyone that wants to do better things in life. That's just my thing.
Perfect. So where's the best place for people to find the book?
I think the best place everywhere, because Jeff Bezos continues to get rich, is his platform, Amazon.
Absolutely. Right.
It's the easiest and it's crazy. They print on demand, but
right.
Yeah, and I really do. I mean, I've always had this philosophy about leading with value. I always tell people this, like, I never show up empty-handed, and I always want to bring more value to people than they bring to me. I said this the other day about making deposits in people's life, right? I never feel bad if I ever didn't need something and I had to call someone. I never feel bad because I know in my mind, well, I've done a lot for that person.
Right.
I'm very much a giver than a taker.
Right.
So
it's not for that, right? You do it anyways.
Yeah, I do it,
right.
but I've the few times, like even when I was scrambling, when I had the bodyguard business and I didn't know anything about finance and I was really in a bad pinch, I didn't know anybody then, and I almost went out of business because I didn't know how manage money and accounts receivable. But now, if I had any financial problems, I know I could call a dozen people and say, "Listen, I'm in this bind. Here's what I could do for you." Even if I give a point of my company, but I have these relationships now. 15 years ago, I didn't know, who do I call?
Mm-hmm.
A bank?
Right.
And I did actually call a bank, and they said, "Yeah, fill out this paper. We'll get back to you in 2 weeks."
Yeah, good luck.
And I said, "I need the money today."
Right.
So it's about relationships and about bringing people value. It all comes back tenfold, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so way I like to close our show most times is this: if Javier over there forgot to hit the record button on all this,
Oh shit.
which is I'll say it's his specialty, but I'm just giving him grief every time, right? But if that happened, and all this was lost, what would you say to a listener, to someone that you want to reach, whether it be about the book, about just the things you've accomplished? And I do agree, there's more than one book in you. I mean, we just skated through this in an hour, but there's you got a bunch of books. Each of those chapters of your life are probably a book of their own.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing more come from you. But what would you summarize this and give advice to a young entrepreneur, intrapreneur person that comes from a humble background that wants to accomplish something?
I'd say no matter what, just start somewhere. I think people, there's this saying about people die with their dreams, right? They're always like, I'm going to do this one day. I'm going to do this one day. And all of a sudden you're 30, 40, 50, 60, and you never do it. I think it's the greatest time in the world right now to start anything you want. There's more kids becoming millionaires because of Amazon, because of building websites, because of AI. I have friends of mine that, one of my good friends, she started an apparel company in her 40s. And I think what they don't think they're able to start, and just start somewhere. That's the biggest thing. I think people like you start a business, right? You figured it out, right? I mean, that's the biggest hang up. People are caught up in their 9 to 5. I get a paycheck and I get it. I'm a single mom, or I got all these challenges, but there's many hours. I mean, I think about the Mrs. Fields of the world to start a cookie company. I think about all these people that just took a chance, and that's the biggest challenge. Just start today. Start somewhere. Start that side hustle. Don't quit your day job, but just start a side hustle. You want to be a realtor? Go get licensed and start showing houses on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
But people just don't start. They think about it, they dream about it, and then they die about it. Sadly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Paralyzation by analyzation, right? They think about it. What if this happens? I say it all the time. Every venture that I get into, I always look at what's the worst possible scenario if this doesn't work.
Right.
And if you're working a job and you don't really have a lot of money and you're not where you want to be, and there's an opportunity in front of you, it's like, if I take this opportunity, it doesn't work out, then I'm going to have a job, not have a lot of money. Exact same situation, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the people in those situations have so much more. It's all upside, right? They're not risking a lot.
That's what I thought when I had the security business. I was doing quite well financially, and then I was facing, oh my God, I don't know if I can make payroll. And I thought, well, what's the worst case? Even though I didn't want to let the guys down because I owed a lot of money. I said, well, what's the worst case? Well, I go back to working. I could just be an employee again,
Right.
and I'll still be okay.
Yeah.
I've never had that mindset of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I said, well, I'll just work
Right.
and start over.
Right. Which is what you were doing anyways.
Yeah,
right?
I was doing it anyway. It just became magnified. But okay, wait,
Correct.
relax. Okay, you might lose everything, but you're not going to really lose anything because you're just going to be back to where you're at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think summarizing what Bruce just said, it's like, take the opportunities, take the risk, take the chance. Don't be necessarily risky.
Yeah.
Like you said, keep your job if you need to, but the opportunities in your pocket with that cell phone, and just all the way you can communicate with the world in a second. There's really no excuse to not have more if you truly want more.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show. It's been a great time. Hopefully we can get you on again, because I think there's a lot more to get into here.
I'd love to.
And I just don't want to drag this out too long every time you come.
Yeah, so. I'm going to come back with my second book. It's named Servant Leader, but I haven't written it yet. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you heard it, guys. Bruce will be back soon when that book comes out, and look forward to trying some of the snacks you brought as well.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.